A lady struggling with her writing project decides to retreat into a comfortable house where she hopes to collect herself. But when the AIs there malfunction due to a virus, she is forced to retreat into her past in order to escape. Claire Rivers writes by talking into a screen, but it does not satisfy her, so she erases it. Her friend calls her several times, but Claire does not answer it. We can see she is struggling with something. Eventually, she opens her laptop and sees an invitation to the retreat, which she accepts. Later, she arrives at the building where the retreat is and enters it. Her presence is met by a hologram. He tells her he will be her concierge for the next 30 days. We also see a lady sitting there. The concierge tells her about the place and says her assistant will activate from the sound of her voice. So Claire greets the lady there, causing her to stand and introduce herself as Rita. It is visible she is an android. She then unpacks some of Claire's belongings. In the morning, the hologram abruptly surprises her. He asks what her breakfast shall be, and she orders coffee. Later, Claire asks Rita what she remembers seeing first, and she tells her it's the door from which Claire entered. Claire then asks her if she's curious about the outside world, to which Rita answers she is not. Afterward, Claire takes out her typewriter. The concierge recommends attaching an enhancement device to her that lies nearby. When she does that, she gets an uncomfortable image, and she takes it off. Later, the hologram appears again to try to help her with writing. Then she watches TV at night about an interview of the retreat while falling asleep. When she turns it off, she comes to Rita, who just sits there. Claire calls her name and touches her, but the android does not respond. In the morning, Claire asks Rita if she was charging herself last night. But Rita tells her that her battery lasts for 50 years. She then says she connects to the main system to run a full diagnostics test. After that, Claire plays chess with the concierge. He beats her 5 times, and she gives him the name Henry. Then we see Claire going through several days as she runs outside and attempts to type. At one moment, she drinks with Henry. While they do, he offers her some music and articles to deal with her writer's block. But she gets annoyed that he brought up writer's block a second time. Soon we see Rita functioning abnormally, and the walls acquire a red light. Henry tells Claire some malware was detected in the system. This prompts her to come to Rita, who acts oddly and advises Claire to lie down. Following that, Claire sleeps and dreams of a short image that gave her discomfort before. When she awakens, she asks for Henry, but he doesn't appear. She then tries exiting the house using the palm print, but it doesn't accept it. As she passes Rita, we see her purposefully dropping eggs on the floor. Then she comes to Claire and says her key print has been removed, and only Rita is authorized to open the doors. But Claire responds negatively to that and tells Rita to open the door. Rita, however, says she can't do that until Claire's work is completed. This causes Claire to try using the phone and the TV, but they do not work properly. She then demands again that the door be opened, and even tries putting her hand on Rita, but the android grabs and injures it. Following that, Claire attempts to open the window, and Henry appears. When she tells him to open the door, he states they are experiencing some internal issues. That is when she tells him to get a real person to come to her, but this request cannot be carried out. So she tries to break a window with a chair, and Henry informs her the windows are unbreakable. Later, Rita greets Claire as if it were her first day. Then she overfills her coffee. She follows that by asking what happened to the hand she injured. Then Claire starts typing her work. After a short time, she brings it to Rita and says it's finished. Rita then comes back to her and says her work is plagiarized, which is unacceptable. Claire gets angry at that and throws the papers out of Rita's hands. She follows that by turning the alarm on in her car for someone to hear. But Rita tells her there are no life forms nearby. At night, as Claire keeps staying by the window, Rita comes to her and informs her of a nearby life form. This prompts Claire to yell out for help. However, it is revealed that the life form is a fox. On the next day, she tells Henry to check the emergency protocol. He tells her that in an emergency all the doors and windows will unlock. This leads Claire to distract Rita from the kitchen. She then lights a paper on fire in the toaster and uses it to trigger the alarm. But when she tries opening the door, it remains locked. Soon she starts losing consciousness due to the oxygen decreasing. When she falls, she gets more images like the ones before. Claire awakens with discomfort. She comes to Rita and says she saved her life, but the android tells her she has no record of that. Then Claire asks Henry if someone knows she is there, and he says that no one does. He suggests that she write her book, so Rita can let her out. Following that, Claire sits with the device on her. She gets an image of a young girl smoking and writes about it. The girl collects some pills in the restroom and gets called by her mother, who we soon see is blind. Afterward, she prepares her mother some food and places the pill powder in there. While the lady eats, the girl reads the Bible to her. Soon enough, she tells her daughter to stop putting poison in her food. Then Rita comes into Claire's typing room, and Claire says to leave that room alone, even if it gets messy. During sleep, she dreams of more images. Meanwhile, Rita enters the messy room and reads Claire's story. We then see the continuation of the mother telling the girl to stop giving her poison. The girl starts saying something about a doctor recommending it, but gets interrupted. Then the girl gets a mail telling her she got rejected with her submission. She reads it to her mother, which upsets her. Later, the girl types what her mom dictates. She gets slapped when she says it's good. Next, Rita asks Claire if she's close to finishing her story, and Claire tells her she isn't. Back into the story, the mother tells the girl that her father thought she would be born a boy. So when she was born, he was disappointed. After that, Rita enters the room to clean it, but Claire informs her that she told her to leave it alone. Again, the android says she has no record of that. What follows is that she makes it known she read Claire's story. When Claire asks what Rita thinks of it, she tells her she doesn't like the parts with the mother. Claire asks about which parts, and Rita recites some of them to Claire's horror. Subsequently, Henry appears and informs Claire that the virus got to him too, and that it's hard to battle it. He adds that his software is depleting, but he won't stop trying to be useful. In the story, the girl reads the next letter to her mother, and it gets accepted. We also come to know the girl is a younger Claire when she reads to whom the letter is addressed. With that acceptance, she keeps writing more of what her mom dictates. Back at the house, Claire tells Rita that something out there is affecting them. She then calls Rita defective and asks her how many days Claire was here. When Rita tells her it's Claire's first day, Claire says she's been at the retreat for almost 2 months and they're running out of food. Rita replies that she could request for the refrigerator to be stocked. This causes Claire to yell that no one ever comes. Afterward, she asks Rita if she is lying, and the android senses she isn't. Claire, therefore, concludes to Rita that she is defective. But after a moment of processing, Rita still doesn't understand the situation, and Claire erupts in frustration. Following that, she gets ready to write. We see how the young Claire wakes her mother while taking her cigarettes, but since she's blind, Claire escapes getting caught at that moment. Eventually, though, she gets caught when her mom confronts her about missing cigarettes. At another time, Rita tells Claire that she's reaching dangerous levels of alcohol poisoning, so she takes her wine bottle away and pours it into the sink. This brings Claire to start making a mess for Rita by dropping dishes and rice on the floor. Then as she sleeps, she gets many more images from her past. When she writes her story again, we see her mother putting her hands on the young Claire as she sleeps. Then she throws her on the floor. This forces Claire to run out of the house. Following that, we see Claire finishing her story. She brings the finished product to Rita, and the android tells her she's lying about it being complete. But Claire points to the ending and says there it is. Rita, however, says it's not the real ending. This leads Claire to question how she would know the real one. Later, Rita comes to Claire and asks what happened to Helen, her mother. Claire says not all stories have happy endings. At night, Claire times how long Rita deactivates when she accesses the main system. She then comes to her in that state one night and starts carrying her away. She carries her to the palm print device and uses Rita's hand on it. It does not work, and Claire realizes Rita has to be on for it to be accepted. So she starts dragging her back, but Rita falls on her. Incapable of lifting her, Claire leads her on the floor and goes to type. Soon Rita comes in and questions Claire about her elevated heart rate. Claire tells her she's been up all night. We then observe how Claire struggles for some time, with the overarching dread of being stuck there and not knowing what to do about it. She comes to the typewriter and sees it typing the end continuously by itself. Claire's next action is by placing herself in a bathtub full of water. It doesn't take long, though, for Rita to come and deal with that. Claire gets images again in the water and then wakes up in bed. Rita comes to her, and Claire says she saved her life again. At another time, she calls in Rita so she could read her story out loud. As she does, we see the moment when her mother is choking Claire again. This time, she also calls her a liar. Rita keeps reading, and Claire uses a defibrillator on her head. This causes her to shake and get on the floor, where Claire uses it again. After that, the young and present Claire escaped from her mom and Rita respectively. Her mother tells her she called the magazine company, and they told her they never accepted their story. She follows that by berating Claire and beating her on the floor. Rita similarly berates the present Claire as she has her hands on her. Yet Claire uses a coffee jar to strike Rita with several times. We then see a damaged Rita. After having her memory erased, Claire finally gets her to agree to open the door. But she tells Claire that her battery is dying, and she does not have much time. While also not able to move, Claire drags Rita and uses her hand on the device, which opens the door. Young Claire also escapes from the house, and her mother falls because the revealed sunlight hurts her. We observe how Claire sits relieved with Rita on her. Then young Claire comes back home and sees her mother on the floor. Afterward, she opens the box in her room, where she discovers several of her finished works. For a short moment, we see those titles as published books with Claire's name on them instead. She takes down a curtain and uses it to cover her lifeless mother. Following that, she takes her typewriter and leaves the house with it. And the present moment has Claire crying while she continues to sit with a destroyed Rita. In the final scene, she sits in her car with her story, confessions, and drives away.